So I'm just going to get started. Thank you guys for coming. This is a really important event, I think, for all of us. I just wanted to especially extend my thanks to the teachers who sacrificed their time to bring in their classes. So some of you are probably wondering who we are and how we got involved. So we're a group of students from Mission, obviously, who have worked with mental health issues. Like myself and the people wearing gray shirts are all from Directing Change. It's this mental health video competition. And Malika is from Peer Resource, which you guys probably know as an important organization on our campus. So today we've invited some speakers to come in and address the issue of mental health on Mission, or at Mission. We've invited current students, alumni, as well as professionals to come in and talk about their personal stories, as well as answer any questions you guys might have. So I've already mentioned this before, but we've passed out note cards. On these note cards, you guys will write down any questions you have during the panel, and our people standing along the aisles will come to you and take your note cards once you've finished and have raised your hand.
So we hope that through this panel, you guys can kind of have an open door to talk about mental health with your peers sitting around you and even your teachers who brought you here. Our hope is that you can maybe listen to some of the perspectives and insights that this group of people can offer you, and maybe take something away and continue these discussions with each other after this event is over, because this is not something that can just be conquered with one English class coming here, and we know that, and we hope that you guys will continue these discussions on your own as well.
Okay, one more thing I just wanted to say is please put away any homework or electronics you have, because that is very disrespectful to both our speakers and your teachers who have taken time from their class to bring you here.
Okay, and now to kick off the event, we're going to have our first three speakers introduce themselves and tell you a bit about why they're here.
Which way are we going? Okay.
Yeah? Oh, okay. Hello. So my name is Emily. So I think I'm supposed to introduce myself. So I have a pet chicken. She's fantastic. I love her. I have to include her because she's 70% of my personality. She's the Beyonce of animals. I love her. But anyway, that's why I'm actually here is because I did struggle a lot with mental health when I was an underclassman. I know freshmen catch a lot of crap because they're freshman year's the easiest year, but it's all really relative. So if 8th grade was nothing and then 9th grade is something, that's a big jump. And so for me, my mental health issues were purely stress-induced, and this year, I was forced to take less of heavy classes than I liked, but that also kind of solved my problem really. I've just been pretty rock solid this whole year, so I just hope that if you were really good at hiding your issues like I was, that this inspires you to actually seek some help.
Hi, my name is Sean Gabel. I am class of '09. I am currently a business intelligence engineer. I created basically a product that helps companies. And by the way, I have bipolar disorder, and I found that out when I started my professional career. So if all y'all know mathematics, bipolar disorder in terms of your mood is a sine function. So you have the ups, downs, ups, downs, ups, downs. So so I can talk about that later. So talk to everyone soon.
Hi, my name is Dee Dee. I'm a class of 2016. And the reason why I'm here is that starting from junior year, I had depression, and I didn't tell any about it, so I was not doing very well. And eventually, I did seek help. And part of why I'm here today is because I hope that with everything that we say, it might inspire some of you to also reach out for support or anything else.
Okay, and now we're going to have our next three speakers kind of talk to you a little more about their stories so you know a bit more about who they are and the kind of people that are here on this panel.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Singh, and I'm a senior. And I want to preface this by saying I've never really talked about my issues for such a long period of time in front of so many people. So if I start speaking fast or if I say things that don't make sense, somebody raise their hand and tell me. Please. Okay. So like a lot of people, I didn't really have mental health issues my entire life. For me, it mostly started junior year. And it seemed to start like on the day of junior year, which sounds kind of weird if you think about it, but if you're a junior or a senior, you kind of know what I'm talking about. So yeah, I was taking a lot of weighted classes in junior year, and there was a lot of stress on me. I never really felt the stress before, like in my sophomore and freshman years. I was just kind of working through it. But once junior year started, everyone around me was freaking out all the time, and I guess I kind of adopted that mentality as well. And then, so things were not great for a little while. And then in October, I was in a car accident, and my doctor told me I had to be out of school for 3 months, and I was kind of devastated because I knew I wouldn't be able to perform academically really well, and that was really important to me for whatever reason. I had a brain injury, so that's why I couldn't come to school. So for 3 months, I was at home by myself mostly, and that made my depression a lot worse because I'm really extroverted, and just being alone by myself basically 24 hours a day was really, really awful. I would lie in bed for hours just not thinking about anything. I would just be lying there, and I wasn't able to focus on anything, so I couldn't do any of my work. I would watch a lot of Netflix kind of mindlessly, and basically that was my life. Like I didn't really do anything. And then when it came time for me to come back to school, I was really, really excited. But I still wasn't able to do work that well because my brain was still struggling. So that cost me a lot of like anguish because up till then, I had always been like a good student. I had always had like a 4.0. I was on top of things. And then to have that taken away from me by my brain was really, I felt like I didn't know who I was anymore. And that sounds bad, but that's basically it. Anyway, I came back to school in January, so I was out from October to January. And when I came back, some of my teachers were really welcoming, and they understood that I couldn't do all my work, so they like forgave that work. Other teachers were a little more hostile, and that definitely contributed to some of like this really scared mentality I had throughout most of my junior year. But once I came back to school, I got a lot better. I was around people again, so I learned how to socialize. And then throughout the year, I had depression on and off again, but it mostly went away. Oh, and I should mention, so during December of that year, while I was still out of school, I went to my doctor, and she told me I had to see a therapist because she said that she was really worried about me. So I went to a therapist that was part of my hospital, and it actually helped me because there was someone who could listen to me, someone older than me, who wouldn't really judge me for any of my experiences. I mean, my friends really helped me while I was out of school. A lot of them came and talked to me sometimes, and that was like a huge difference for me. But they never really could understand what I was going through. So yeah, I talked to a therapist for a while, and then I started seeing her less and less, and eventually I kind of wore off. Senior year, I had similar issues, but they were mostly due to anxiety. There was a lot of college-related anxiety on me, and I eventually, I had to go back to the therapist because my anxiety was really, really bad. And then slowly, gradually, I kind of learned to deal with it until I'm at this place now where I have it less and less. If you guys have never had anxiety, it kind of feels like somebody's like grabbing your stomach and squeezing it really hard, and your heart speeds up, and you kind of start shaking. That's how it is for me. So yeah, now I'm here today, and I hope to be able to help other people who've gone through the same stuff by telling them that it'll be okay in the end. Okay, that's it.
Okay, my name is Teresa, and apparently I'm not a student, and I'm a parent. Believe it or not, I used to be a teenager. I was not born as old as I am right now. I work at Santa Clara County Mental Health Department, so I'm very happy to be here, and hopefully I can answer some of your questions and offer my knowledge and my experience. Today is Tuesday morning. Now it's still early. Yesterday is your fun day, right? Relaxing day. I saw this bungee house, on the campus. And as a parent, I'm very happy and relaxed. It's like a playground type of school. And hopefully that will happen more often and make you happier and less stressed. Because this early morning, I believe some of you, even though yesterday is a fun day, possibly you still work very late. Right? Now maybe still tired. So if you fell into sleep later, it's okay. Sleeping is very important for mental health. And just remember, wake up asking your questions, and we will more happy to answer those questions. If you do not have plan to fall into sleep, then how about just adjust your postures. Chin up and open your chest, because health psychology shows that once you open your chest, get more oxygen in, that will change your body chemistry, make you less stressed and more energetic. After the session, when you walk back to your class and try to chin up and open your chest, try to avoid your smartphone. When you looking at your smartphone, which means you are curling up, and the body send a message telling you that you are depressed and anxious. That's the research shows that. If you will like to practice this with your friend, chin up, open up your chest, and you feel funny, and you laugh with your friend, that even better, because laughing will reduce the stress. Especially laughing with friend, not texting with friend, face to face, laughing together. That will lessen the stress and also increase the neuron in your brain, make you smarter. I think Mission High School students will focus on that more than just less stress. Okay, back to my work. I work at mental health department. And Santa Clara County Mental Health Department is like Alameda County Mental Health Department. We help people who live in Santa Clara County who has Medi-Cal. Only 20% people register for Medi-Cal. However, every single day, we got more than 100 people asking for help. People call for themselves, teenagers call for themselves, parents call for their children, school calls, and even family doctors call to asking for help. My coworker and me, our job is evaluate all the callers, evaluate all the cases, see how urgent they are and how severe the symptoms are, and try to make arrangement for them to seek help. Every single day, we have more than 100 people. So you can tell, pretty much this mental illness is very common. And actually, based on a lot of survey and research, 1 in 5 adults suffer from mental illness when they are answering that survey during that year. And 1 out of 5 children aged from 13 to 18 suffer from severe mental illness during their lifetime, which means they either suffer when they are answering that survey or previously. Even though mental health are so common, however, people do not ask for help. When we talk to the client always tell us that, I've been struggling with these symptoms for months, even for years, even for decades. They do not get help until the symptoms getting really, really severe, affect their life, affect their school, affect their career. They have to drop out of the school and they cannot work. They have to depend on disability. Also, their relationship was ruined, and even they cannot really function right. They cannot sleep, they cannot eat. Then they have to get some help. And I believe all of you will agree, mental health is as important as physical health. But if you getting cold, you know how to take care of yourself, right? And if you found out your symptoms getting worse, not getting better after 2 weeks, and started to have symptoms of pneumonia, I think you will run to the doctor. You are not feeling shamed or embarrassed to go to see the doctor. And because pneumonia is life-threatening disease. However, when you are feeling sad, angry, anxious for more than 2 weeks, your brain chemistry changed. It's hard for you to stay happy again. And then because the chemical change, you need to see the doctor too. And a lot of people feeling like, okay, and mental health is just in your head. It will get over with it. I don't think anybody would tell people who suffer from pneumonia that, okay, pneumonia is just in your lung. You can breathe out, right? So hopefully today, after this session, and you will see mental health from another perspective, and you will try to get help as soon as possible. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Harshad Gupta. I went by Harshita while I was here. I graduated a year ago, so class of 2016. While I was at MSJ, I was a member of peer resource for 3 years. So I was really big, and I spent a lot of time on mental health awareness, talking about stigma, supporting students who were struggling with their mental health on campus. But I spent very little time directly addressing what I was experiencing. I never really talked about that in the open. I guess this is the first time in front of MSJ students that I will be, I guess, sharing what I experienced while I was here. Over the course of my time in high school, I struggled with depressive symptoms. I struggled with anxiety. I started having panic attacks around my junior year. And I was in therapy pretty much consistently my junior and senior year. I am at Harvard now, and I still get therapy. And I think I just want to shed light a little bit on what I characterize mental illness as, and how I think you can still be the person you want to be. I think at MSJ there's a lot of students who think that, oh, if I admit to having some sort of difficulty with my mental health, or if I go and talk to someone about the fact that I have symptoms, I'm going to have to change what I want to do with my life. I'm going to have to set less ambitious goals. I'm going to have to just be a different person who I don't necessarily want to be. I guess I would characterize mental health and having struggles with mental health and mental illness as, say, if you have a broken leg, you have to learn to deal with the fact that you have some sort of restrictions because of the fact that you have a broken leg. You have to maybe take different paths. You have to maybe not take the stairs. You have to learn to use crutches. You have to learn to ask people when you need support to move from one place to another. And having a mental illness or having difficulties with your mental health is very similar in that you have to kind of just learn how it affects you. You have to learn when it flares up. You have to learn when it inhibits you, and figure out alternate pathways of getting to the same place you wanted to be, healthier pathways, so that you're not letting it interfere with your life as much. I started having serious, anxious, so I first started having depressive symptoms towards the end of my sophomore year. I would sleep for way too long, feel very miserable and hopeless. I would think a lot about dying and taking my life, and that's when I first started going to a therapist. My junior year was when I started having symptoms of anxiety and panic attacks. And for those of you who don't know what panic attacks are, they look different for everyone. But mine would look like starting to hyperventilate, crying uncontrollably. I would curl up into a ball. I remember the first panic attack I had in front of my parents was in our living room, in front of the TV, and I was shaking and crying. I felt really cold, but I was sweating at the same time, and my mom was just holding me, and all I could feel was fear. I was like, I'm scared and I don't know what to do. This was the morning of a late start Wednesday. I remember just being terrified, thinking that everyone at school would hate me. These insane worries and fears that weren't really justified, but that I couldn't get out of my head nonetheless. That's when I reached back out to counselors and I started going back to therapy. And I would say therapy was very, very helpful. It was really useful to kind of, like I talked about, if you have a broken leg, you have to come up with strategies to live your life, trying to work with this broken leg that you have and these symptoms that you have, and be happy nonetheless. And I kind of, going to therapy helped me develop those strategies and helped me understand my anxiety and learn to live with it. I stayed in therapy. I was, again, in therapy my senior year. And yeah, while I was at MSJ, a lot of what peer resource talked about was stigma and how it can feel easier for people who struggle with things like depressive symptoms or symptoms of anxiety to reach out to people and support them. And a big thing I tried to do was talk about the fact that I go to therapy. I have a therapist. Like, it wasn't a huge deal. If you have a broken leg, or if you're going to see a doctor regularly because of a condition like, say, diabetes, something that you take medication for, that you need regular check-ins for, it's something you wouldn't be that scared mentioning to a friend, but it was something I felt terrified initially mentioning. So a lot of the time now, my friends call it the throwing the bone that I do, and a lot of the time when I'm having a casual conversation with someone and we're talking about something related, I'll bring in that, yeah, I was talking to my therapist the other day and she mentioned blank. Don't make it a big deal. Like, I think it's important to try to talk about it. Like, it is not the end of the world. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't mean that you are any less of a person. So yeah, I would encourage you to normalize struggling with mental illness and seeking out healthcare for your mental health. I talk to my counselors a lot. They helped me get the resources I need and referred me to the sources I needed. And yeah, I guess I would just say, as you go on to college and as you move through the world, you will realize that there is a lot of support around struggling with mental health and mental illness. When I got to college, I realized that there is such a thing as mental health urgent care, the way you would call the ER and say that, like, I just like hurt myself, I hit a wall, or I think I have a concussion, can you help me out? I have called the ER while I was at college and said that, hey, I like can't stop crying and I've been crying for the past 10 hours and I feel like I can't breathe, what do I do? And they actually have resources for that, and I was able to go in and talk to someone. That's when I first started getting medication. I've been on medication for about 6 or 7 months now. And yeah, I consider myself a very functional person. I consider myself strong, consider myself resilient, and I think that saying that, yes, I have symptoms of mental illness or symptoms of a mental health problem, and this affects my life, doesn't mean that I can't have a normal and happy life. And I think it's important to talk about the fact that all of us can experience these type of things without it making us lesser.
Okay, so now we're going to kind of move on to the question and answer portion of our event. So if you guys have any questions right now, it would be a good time to write them down on those note cards that we gave you. And if you can raise your hand, and our people will come around and collect those note cards. So I don't know if you guys need a couple of seconds to do that. We'll be moving on to our moderator questions now. So the first question that we have for the panel is, what constitutes professional help when somebody feels like they have no support resources around them? So what, like, is it a hotline, a counselor, a parent, or a psychiatrist? What helped you the most, and what do you think students can reach out to when they're in a high school situation?
You want to go?
Okay, at first, I would like to remind you that if you have a question, when you raise your hand, even here or back to your class, if you raise hand like this, I will suggest you raise hand like this. Social psychology shows if you raise your hand really high in the air, and that will increase your confidence.
It also shows in mathematics. Just want to say that with all of our mission people who are taking the AP test are going really into math. Actual mathematics and game theory shows that if you raise your hand, it's called the stand-up effect, and other people raise their hands. I also see that only one person is actually actively listening, and that's amazing. So basically, what everyone here uses Google, correct? If you need help, you can Google it. For example, if you're in an unhealthy relationship, there are assets you could use called SAFE within, and that is located, I believe, in Fremont, and that's for specifically domestic violence or domestic abuse, financial abuse. However, there are multiple helplines, like the suicide helpline. There are other resources that you can reach out to. So that's definitely one way that you could work.
Write down this number or key in your telephone. It's National Crisis Line. It's 1-800-273-TALK. And that's not for, that hotline, national hotline, is not only for people who struggle with mental health symptoms, also for people who try to help their friends. You know, anytime, 7 days a week, 24/7, anytime you can call that number. And Alameda, I work at Santa Clara, but I checked Alameda County Crisis Line, 24/7 is 1-800-309-2131. And as long as you are not in danger to yourself or others, all the counseling is confidential. And your counselor will not share who you are. It will not disclose any information even to your parents. However, if you are at risk of hurting yourself or others, we do not keep that promise. And anybody would like to get?
As for me, I didn't really talk to my parents all that much because they were dealing with some other stuff, so I didn't want to bother them. But what really helped me was going to a therapist from my hospital, because I feel like the mental health hotline is a really good tool if in that moment you need it. But if you have longer term issues like I did, it's helpful to talk to a professional.
I think it's sorry, I'm sick. Okay. So I think in terms of the original question, like what constitutes professional help, well, I think everybody would agree that therapists count as professional help because they are getting paid to help you. Yes. But I think just other people might disagree, but I feel like hotlines are actually I wouldn't consider them professional help because they're all volunteers. All of those people there, they're spending their free time there just to be able to talk to people who need them. And from my personal experience, when I've called suicide hotlines, the counselors I talked to, they've all been very compassionate, very understanding, and they truly listen to you. And that's not always the case because every counselor will vary sometimes in how well they can understand you, but overall, they're definitely all doing their best, and they all have, I would say that they all have good intentions. Also, in terms of parents, for me, reaching out to my parents my parents are actually my biggest support system. And again, I guess mileage will vary depending on your relationship with your parents. But I didn't have the best relationship with my parents either when I started having issues and having depressive symptoms, but I worked through it with them. It was over the course of half a year. I kept on talking to them. I kept on trying to explain what I was going through and what I needed, and it was through just this period of continuous and intense communication that we finally managed to understand each other, and they understood how to best help me. So I think that no matter what your relationship with your parents might be, it's not a lost cause to reach out to them.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, I would like to add one thing.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it depends on the issue. Yeah, it depends on the relationship with your friends and your family. For mental health professional, psychiatrist is an MD doctor. You have to go to medical school in order to get that degree. So usually psychiatrists will not just talk to you, and they are just like a regular doctor. They prescribe medication. And then it's a clinical psychologist. Sometimes it's a school psychologist doing the test on your academic issue, and then it's a clinical psychologist. They will see patient, talk to the patient. And myself is a marriage family therapist and also licensed social worker. And we talk to patient, talk to our clients, offer so-called type of therapy. And every one of us have a different theoretical orientation. They use different way to help our client, to help our client. So it really depends on your symptoms and how you struggle. In Santa Clara County, all the children under 18, we don't like to medicate them because children under 18, they are still developing. So we try our best not to medicate them. So all the parents, even though they just want the kid to see the psychiatrist to get medication, we do not offer that services. We let parents know that all the kids has to go to see the counselor as well. If it's necessary, then we will refer them to see the psychiatrist.
And I'll just play off of that. So currently, right now, I am taking medication, but my previous medication didn't really work out for me. One, it made me gain weight, and it impaired my cognitive abilities. So that means that it was really muddling. It was hard for me to do math, to do anything, programming, so on and so forth. So I switched up my medication, and for the most part, so I also have anxiety. I have a list of things that are not going too well. Well, they are going well now, but, and they're just a tool within your toolbox. And I do not rely on that medication to fix all my problems. It's a lot of, I guess, relying on myself and my group of people, my close friends, to help me through it, to either understand the stress points. Like, for example, if you really get to know yourself, you understand your triggers, as in not like, oh, you're triggering me, bro, but you understand what triggers your anxiety, your stress, and you do your best to avoid it. Sometimes you can avoid it, but you have to learn, for example, breathing, that breathing exercise. That I do that all the time when I'm in meetings and stuff. When I get anxious, just quietly sit there, pretend I'm listening to somebody and just focus in on myself, then re-engage and ask the very important question, yes, while they're asking me the same question.
Kind of to add to that, I thought I'd provide my perspective on what I feel like my medication does for me. So I dealt with my mental health symptoms for a pretty long time without being on medication entirely, and I think I want to emphasize that medication is not for everyone, and it isn't really necessary a lot of the time. So the way I have come to describe it, curves seem to be a trend today, but if I would say that like this peak of anxiety is what I used to feel before, I'm on a medication that I take every day now. And I would say that yes, I still experience those peaks, but the peaks are a little less up there. They're a little more manageable, so that the strategies that I have developed are a little easier to deploy. Because when you're at that peak, it can be really, really difficult to realize that, hey, I need to do a breathing exercise, or hey, I need to maybe like rethink how I'm handling this situation, or potentially remove myself from the situation. So yes, I do have my peaks, but they're a little more reasonable. They're a little more manageable, and maybe a little bit less frequent. But I wouldn't say that medication is kind of a fix everything solution. It's a part of your overall strategy at handling this and being effective at not letting it interfere with your life to a great extent. And again, I want to emphasize, I handled this and was living healthily with my anxiety and mental illnesses for over 2 years without medication. And taking medication is something that I have started doing recently, and it has been helpful, but it is not the only thing that can help.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Again, if you have...
One thing. So research shows the most effective approach is medication plus therapy. Medication will help when your symptoms got very severe. It's hard for you to just talk to a therapist. However, when your symptoms stabilize, then therapy will kick in, helping you managing your mental health issue for the long run.
Thank you. So again, we just wanted to say, if you have any questions, write it down and raise your hand. We'll keep it anonymous. We won't say who wrote the question if that's an issue. So our next question is, how can students help their peers? How can students help their peers they see might be struggling? Like, how can you help other peers that are struggling?
Oh, you guys want to go? Yeah.
So something that helped me a lot was my friends, actually. So I think a way that peers can help other people who are struggling is just by spending some time with them, honestly, because having depression or anxiety can make you feel like you're really alone, like most of the time. But what some of my friends would do is that we would, like, if one of them was going to Target or something, she'd be like, hey, do you want to come to Target with me? And it sounds really strange, but I was like, yeah, sure, I'd love to go. I don't want to be alone. And then that would really lower my stress levels for a long time because, like, we would talk, we would make fun of each other, all that stuff. And I also think it's important to talk to your friends about their issues or any issues you think they might have. People with depression or anxiety don't usually want to talk about it, like they don't say it out loud. So if you feel like a friend of yours is dealing with that stuff, maybe start with your own issues. Just strike up a conversation and say, hey, I've been struggling with this stuff for a while, and just see where that pans out. Because if they know that you're there for you to talk to them, it really helps.
I think along with everything that everyone is saying right now, general strategies for being a supportive friend. And I think like this is stuff I've taken away from peer counseling experience. I'm a peer counselor at college now. But one of the biggest things is you just like check in regularly, say like, is this helpful? Is this what you need right now? Is talking about this, or like say going to Target or whatever thing like you might suggest or ask them about, is this helping? Is this not helping so much? And give them an opportunity to think about it and respond. They might not know the answer. They might not know what would be helpful in the moment. If you ask them, what can I do for you right now? They might not know. Give them time and space to figure that out. Say like, hey, I get it if you might not know what's most helpful right now, but I want you to know that when you do think you have an answer, let me know and we can like do that together, or we can work on it. I'm happy to listen if listening is helpful. I'm happy to distract you, talk about something else. But it really should be guided by the person who's having the experience themselves. Don't try to force something on them because you think it's what's best for them. Because at the end of the day, a person is a master of their own experience, and they understand what they're experiencing, and they can definitely tell you when something's not helpful. So I think checking in with your friends is very, very useful. And again, I want to emphasize calling hotlines is super helpful. You can call them and say like, hey, I think my friend might be depressed, or I think my friend might be having panic attacks in class. I have no idea how to help them. I have no idea what to do. Can you give me resources? Can you tell me what to ask them? Can you tell me how I can be a supportive friend? And people on hotlines, after staffing a hotline myself, I can tell you the most calls that we get are from people who are trying to help their friends rather than people who are struggling themselves. So as peers, something that you can do is just take advantage of the resources yourself, and then you'll feel more confident, like you've talked to a professional, like you've talked to someone who knows what they're doing, and they've actually given you pointers, so you don't feel like you're kind of like trying to guess what's helpful, be like, I don't know if I'm helping or making things worse. So that's something I would say.
Yeah, I guess I have to differentiate from like regular, like a feeling sadness, feeling angry, when things happen, and that's normal reaction. And if you're just feeling sad and angry for a day or two and talk to your friend, it will make you feel better. But however, if you struggle for over 2 weeks, your brain chemical change, and that's the time you really want to get some professional help. And so for myself, I have a very stressful job, even though it's a very rewarding job, but it's very stressful. And I myself will like to use breathing technique. I'm too busy to go to yoga and to go to Tai Chi, and yoga and Tai Chi will help a lot to relax the stress. But I do have time to breathe. I believe you do too. So breathing, and when I breathe, it's a deeply breathe, like breathe in slowly and breathe out slowly. And sometimes I will add some imagery. So when I breathe in, I'm telling myself I breathe in all the positive energy. Then when I breathe out, I'm thinking I'm blowing out all my stress. So that will help too. Before your class or before the exam, do the breathing is when you breathe in, imagine all the light, positive energy coming into your body. When you blow out, and if you are so nervous, you could just using your mouth to blow out, like, try to telling yourself you breathe out all the negative energy. That will help you.
Okay, sorry. We're going to move on to our audience questions now. So counseling can be considered as courage to find help. Why does mental counseling have a negative stigma in American society?
Oh, that is a lecture in college. It's a multifaceted, God, I can't believe I use that. So it's a multifaceted thing. So it's safe to say a majority of us are minorities. Within our culture as Asians, communication isn't really there in general within the family, on average. So the reason why it's stigmatized is because one, it's hard to communicate and say, I need help in general. And it is even harder to even just talk about it because one, for example, I am bipolar. Everyone's like, oh, so you just have mood swings and you're just crazy and do this. I was like, no. I have these arcs that basically make me really hyperactive. Well, not really hyperactive. My thoughts really just go a trillion miles per hour, then I immediately crash and go into a super depressive mode where I can barely function. So so essentially, it's because of culture, number one, within itself, and then also the lack of, I guess, good, a lack of advocates getting enough time within our society to talk about it, and getting a stage like this, literally a stage like this, to talk to you guys and to really say, mental health is something that you need to really worry about when you're pushing yourself to achieve what you want to achieve. So yes, I can go on and on about this, but I think other people want to talk about it.
I feel like the simple answer is that mental health affects your mental faculties and the way that you interact with people. It affects your behaviors and your moods and your personality, seemingly your personality, right, in a specific moment. And those are, in our modern society, taken as indicators of competency. Like, how legit are you? How good at your job are you? How good of a student are you? So the reality is that it is very difficult for, I think, there's a lot of misunderstanding that if you are struggling with mental health symptoms, it means that you are less competent, rather than if somebody has a broken leg, if say a track runner has a broken leg, and they're not able to run track anymore, you wouldn't necessarily say that they're no longer track athletes, and you wouldn't necessarily say that they're no longer good at their sport, but you would attribute it to the fact that they have a broken leg. I think that it's hard. Our society hasn't gotten that great at drawing this line at, hey, what is a function of the symptoms of this what can be attributed to the mental illness, and what is actually like this person's incapabilities? And I think that's a hard line to draw, and I wouldn't necessarily say I have an answer. I can't tell you like what is because of someone's mental illness and what's because of their personality or the way they are in general, but I think that is something that makes it harder, that it's perceived as like a part of you rather than something that you struggle with and suffer from. And I don't know if any of the panelists have perspective on that, but generally I would say that's the conundrum.
And also, even though the technology is so advanced, we are developing artificial intelligence, but we know very less about our brain. So that's, Sujita gave us a very good answer, because people do not understand, and that's invisible. If we can see people bleeding, we know something wrong, and not because of that person. But if we see that people act really strange, we thought it's crazy. I'm working at a multicultural team, so mental health issue is stigma. It's not within only one culture. Like, I work with my Hispanic. My coworker from Hispanic culture, and from Middle East culture, from Caucasian culture, and from Asian American culture. But all of us, all the different kinds of society, mental health is always, the issue that people do not want to get help until the symptom getting really worse.
Okay, our next question is there a way for a minor 16 to 17 years of age to get antidepressants or medication without parents knowing?
You're the mental health professional. Go ahead.
Well, about a couple of years ago, there's a new law. As long as you are age 12 and you are capable and you are mature enough to receive mental health services, and as long as, if without mental health services, it will put you in a higher risk, you do not need parents' consent. As a parent, I don't like that. As a therapist, we always try to encourage, kids to work with their parents, because it's very hard to treat a child himself or herself without parents' support, because that's the system. And especially the medication. If you take medication, you really need to work with your psychiatrist, because that medication is not just you put some medication on your skin. That medication is trying to balance your brain chemistry, and you need to really work closely with your psychiatrist, and sometimes you need people monitoring you. And as a kid under 18, and they feel much better today, they may not want to take the medication. That's very dangerous. You cannot just taking medication like taking vitamins on and off. It's more than, it's very dangerous, I would just say that. And then parents need to monitor you, or close relatives need to monitor. And without telling parents that you are taking medication is not a good idea. However, if you are in any kind of crisis, and telling parents will put you in a higher risk to hurting yourself or others, and that we will do the minor consent. That's a medical decision.
This doesn't directly answer the question, but I guess I want to give you a little perspective into what it might look like for your parent to be involved in therapy/counseling. When I was a minor and I was receiving therapy, my therapist would talk to my mom at the beginning of every session, and I think it was really useful because a lot of the time my conflict would be with my parents, or I would be having things where I felt like they weren't effectively supporting me, and your therapist can essentially kind of like respectfully let your parents know what they're doing that isn't helpful and counsel them on the things that they're struggling with, because it kind of takes a little bit of a family counseling model. But there was one session where my mom was driving me crazy that week. I just brought her into therapy, and I like sat down with her and I told my therapist, I was like, is it okay if I bring her in? And we like talked through a conflict we were having that was giving me a lot of anxiety in front of the therapist, and it was very beneficial. So I guess I would say that it's a pretty flexible process, and it can incorporate parents in, and I understand that our parents come from different places with their understanding of mental health and illness, with their personal stigmas, with their personal biases. And I would say that therapists can potentially be helpful in mitigating or helping you deal with some of the biases that your parents have in ways in which your parents are not necessarily being the most supportive. They might not listen to you. Your parents might not completely take you seriously when you say something's not helpful, but they might take it better when it comes from a therapist and from a professional. And in that sense, I would say it's helpful to have your parents involved in the process.
Okay, hi guys, we don't have much time left, so if you have any more questions, you can come up to us or email us at msjmentalhealth@gmail.com, all lowercase and no spaces. Okay, so our very last question is, how do you support someone when they believe that they do not need help or are not willing to seek help?
Go ahead.
I think that is a difficult question because you don't want to force something on somebody against somebody else's will unless they're in serious danger of hurting themselves or others. But at the same time, you really want to help them because you care about them and you're a friend. And I think that's that is a line that I know people have walked a few times, and I think that situation, the best thing you can do is just to be there for them, because if they don't want help at that exact moment, if they're not ready to deal with their issues, if they don't want to talk about what they're going through, then there isn't really much you can do to like force them to do that. But if you're just there, I would personally say that if you're just there for them, then at least they're being supported. And at least it shows that you are trying to take into account what they want. And there are other ways to help them. Like maybe you could just do things together with them, or distract them, or again, depends on the person. But there are other things you could do to maybe help them too, even if it's not getting to like the root of the problem. Yeah.
Okay, so there's only two. Oh, does anybody want to tell?
I just wanted to add sorry. So as the person who has wanted to not receive help, I can say that, like Dee Dee said, being really supportive is great. Also, kind of like what Harshad said, just asking like if things are helping. Also, what might help is if you ask them to kind of like set a boundary for themselves. Like, for me, it was like, okay, if I'm having like multiple panic attacks a day for like a week, then I'll go to therapy. Like that helped me, and I was like, okay, gotta go to therapy. So if you help your friend kind of like set boundaries like that, but not being like too pushy, that can be helpful, because sometimes you just brush off your symptoms, and your friends can see it, but you can't.
also like to add that, or you would like to take care of yourself as well. You know, a lot of time and your friend suffer from mental illness and you watch them suffering, that's very difficult for you. So you would like to get help too. Talk to adult, talk to a teacher, and take care of yourself. And also keep reminding your friend that mental health issue is treatable, and then there are helps out there. Okay, and just enjoy life with them and try to exercise with them. That will help them, and keep reminding them until they find the right timing to
Okay,
get
guys.
help.
So quick instructions. If you have any questions, email us or come up to the panelists. And I just wanted to get big thanks to all the teachers and panelists who made this possible. So thank you guys for coming. If you have any more questions, just email us at msjmentalhealth@gmail.com.